2009. What can I remember about this year? Well, I remember different things. I turned 13. I got into the Metal Gear series way more thanks to Super Smash Brothers. And on top of that, I was just noticing a lot of new releases, which was exciting for the time. And then, of course, I got so excited when I found out that Inuyasha, the final act, was airing. And I was aware that it was airing. I was so excited. I even mentioned it to my dad, which was odd. He didn't know nothing about anime or even Inuyasha. I don't know why. And I remember one thing. I remember one specific thing that came out on the 13th of October. There was different things that happened. I remember my little cousin was born that day, and Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games also released. And there was one specific thing that came out on the 13th of October, and that was Star Wars Death Troopers. This was the first time that I ever saw a Star Wars story be placed in a horror atmosphere, which at the time I was a little bit like, whoa, what? Because I never saw anything like this before for a Star Wars story that's usually like lighthearted at points, but can be serious at the same time. But this took a different approach, and I actually appreciate it. And I will tell you this, the fan trailer for this book was outstanding. But now, is it even worth bothering to look back at this book? This classic of a horror story set in the Star Wars verse? Compared to now Disney's Star Wars that have wrecked everything that I liked about Star Wars. I know they have brought zombies back, but do they do it well? Well, technically I don't see a lot of gore in it as much as like in here because this had gore. But anyways, enough chat about this Disney Star Wars that ain't really canon anymore. Maybe I could count some things, but not a lot. Let's look back to the past before Disney wrecked it. Let's go back to a time of the golden age of Star Wars where this was something to look forward to for a horror month like this. Let's get to it, shall we?
Okay, right off the bat, I gotta talk about the illustration on the cover of this book. It gives you that sort of horror vibe of Star Wars. A stormtrooper helmet with blood hanging from a hook, or an iron hook, I would say. On top of that, just reading some of the details of how things happen in this book, from the gory and destruction of a human body, and also a lot of medical stuff too that you learn from this book. It pretty much follows these two young boys, well, one's older and the other one's just 13, in the prison barge Purge, which carries a lot of inmates and are under the control of the Imperials, who put them in prison for either crimes or they're part of the rebellion. However, their purge breaks down and they don't know how long they'll be floating out there until all of a sudden there's a Star Destroyer just floating on by, and it's possible that the ship is abandoned. So a group of Imperial troopers, some Imperial officers, and engineers go into the Star Destroyer to gather parts and supplies. And it's made up of two groups to search the Star Destroyer. However, one group only comes back. The other group never comes back. And all of a sudden, everybody starts getting very, very ill as this virus that they picked up from the Star Destroyer is spreading rapidly across the Purge. It soon ends up where only a few survive. And now pretty much the ship is a ghost ship as well. And there's only 6 people that survive this virus. However, the only way to get out of the Purge and the smell of death is to go up into the Star Destroyer. However, they are not prepared for what is going to happen in the next few hours. That will turn their life upside down, and boy, they're going to see a lot of hellish and gory carnage. Now, I do want to mention one specific thing, is that there actually is an audiobook version of this. However, it's not your typical audiobook. It's got sound effects. The guy in there is actually a voice actor, and he does really well to narrate everything from both Imperial officers and other specific characters that just fit really well. It's got blaster fires. It's got creepy noises, and even the chapter intros are very creepy as well. Even the start of the audiobook plays the main Star Wars theme, and then it messes up by the end of it, which is beautiful.
Yeah, the audiobook is just, I like listening to it every so often because it's just creepy. And I would also advise, if you're listening to it on Halloween night, listen to it in the dark with headphones. The cover for the book is also really nice. I like all this. It's really cool. I think I got this around the time, or a year after, months after. It's also got a nice wallpaper here. So it's got who wrote it. It's got this. Isn't it beautiful? So beautiful. To me, it's really hard to just imagine just seeing Star Wars be placed in a horror atmosphere, which was really cool. Well, now I think it's really cool.
Boy, I remember watching this fan-made trailer for the book, and it did freak me out a little because I never saw anything that gory in Star Wars. And I still think it holds up as a good horror Star Wars story. And boy, and that trailer really did impact me in that horror vibe, I gotta tell you. At the end of the day, this is probably one of the best Star Wars horror book that I've heard. The audiobook is probably the best to get that experience and listen to it at night. It is so creepy.
I know these recent Star Wars stuff have been trying to kind of insert that back in, tying it into a bit of the witches and Clone Wars, and now close to the Second Galactic Civil War. But lately I've just been hearing nothing but not great things, or they're either messing up the timeline or stuff. I don't know. At this point, Disney's Star Wars is kind of just But who counts Disney? They won't go this length. This was like LucasArts or Lucasfilm's greatest time to actually create nothing but good Star Wars stories, and this was a fun Star Wars story, a horror Star Wars story that I still liked it. Heck, I think personally, when it comes to listening to something horror, either watching films, playing horror games, either they're going to scare you or not. Personally, I never really get scared of watching these stuff or playing these things. But the audiobook of Death Troopers was actually the one time I actually felt on edge, because you're listening to the sound effects while the narrator is narrating stuff. He's describing what's going on, and you can just picture and visualize what the characters are seeing and where they're at. It actually makes it a little more creepy compared to if you're visually seeing what you're seeing. At least in this, I felt a little more unedged about stuff. Now, of course, I listen to this a lot, so I kind of start to feel the same way when it comes to movies, or like horror movies or horror video games. Just kind of like, but still visualizing it, even to this day, when I listen back to the audiobook, it's still so good. Still so good.
So if I were to pick which one I would suggest a good experience with, either reading it or listening to it, I'd say listen to the audiobook version. It's got sound effects, voice acting, you name it. It's so creepy, and I like it. For a Star Wars story to be horror is beautiful.
So Star Wars Death Troopers, one of my favorite horror stories in the Star Wars universe. While I know it's just a book, there's also the audio version. There's different ways to consume this story. I would advise listen to the audiobook. So good. I mean, you could read it too if you want, or have the back cover, because the cover is nice, the book's nice. But I still say listen to the audiobook version. And overall, I'd say definitely check it out if you are a horror fan and like Star Wars, because this will give you chills. And just those chapter marks are just so creepy. Like I said, listen to it at night. I can't really listen to it too much at night, but we'll see. Even I get a little like, thinking about it while I'm trying to sleep. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like this review, please continue to follow this show, Pop Culture Talk, where we talk about a lot of things in pop culture media, video games, books, comics, mangas, anime, TV shows, cartoons, you name it. Enjoy the horror month, y'all.
Get him, Hunt! Yeah!